we got to bring in lead analyst for Fox's coverage of college football, the best hair in the business, Joel Klatt, joins us.
I love that that's part of the introduction, right?
You said that Rosen's comments...
How you doing, first of all?
I'm doing great,
Okay,
man.
good.
I'm doing great. We're kind of close to neighbors, but not quite neighbors.
That's right.
So I gotta. It's been your town longer than it's been my town, but we got to make it our town very, very soon. So wait, so you said Rosen's comments are taken out of context? How?
Well, I think generally they've been taken out of context, which is too bad because the point that he was making I thought was actually very layered, and it was very smart, and he was 100% right based on what he said and what he was arguing. Those that think that Rosen was arguing that the education isn't important and that they shouldn't go to school and they're there to play football, those people are wrong. That's not what he was arguing. He was actually arguing the exact opposite, that school is very important, that this is the one opportunity that they're going to get at an education, and the demands of playing intercollegiate athletics, really any sport, but mainly football is what he's arguing, and your academics, they can conflict and will conflict with each other. Wouldn't you agree? I mean, we both played.
I would actually say more so in basketball, honestly, than football, because it's 2 semesters and there's more midweek games. Although there's becoming more midweek games in college football. I know Fox this year doing Big Ten on a Friday night. We'll be doing some of those games. But I would agree with you that if people think he's saying it's not important, then they're taking it out of context. I think he's saying that you can't do both at a high level, and to that I would greatly disagree with. Does it take away from your social life? I think it's
rare, Doug, and I think you have to agree. It's only outliers access the full value of the academics of the institution, full value, and access and benefit from the full value of their scholarship athletically, and it's because of those conflicts. Because let's face it, and he goes on to say, and I thought this was the best point that he made, is that universities need to do a better job of developing a lot of these players academically rather than just getting them in and keeping them eligible. Because you and I know that happens, right? There are guys that go to colleges all over the country that maybe aren't qualified to be in those schools, but they're there, and so the programs and the academic support staffs try to prop them up, and they try to usher them through school only to keep them eligible. I would argue that the value of the degree that they earn is far less than what a normal student is earning at the same institution, because they're not developing like that normal student or non-athlete student. So I think what Josh says was actually really intelligent. It was articulated fairly well, and then it was ran with because of the headline. You can't do both. He wasn't saying you can't do both. He was saying that you can't access the full value of the education of the institution and the full value of your athletic scholarship at the same time. There will be conflicts. And here's the thing about conflicts. Your sport will win, because that's why you're there in the first place.
But I also think he's speaking from his own perspective, and maybe it speaks poorly as to the job that UCLA is doing, but because... and look, first thing is, in terms of guys that just skate by, you go to any frat house in the country, there are guys...
it's happening there, too.
They're just, hey, look, man, what do I got to do? C's for degrees, right? C's for degrees. Who's the easiest teacher? What's the easiest major? As long as I get that paper, it doesn't matter. So that happens kind of across the board. So that's the first thing. Whether it's an outlier... And look, I went to school. There was a guy named Pat Garrity. Pat was 10-year veteran in the NBA, now works for the Detroit Pistons. He was the president of the NBA PA when he was a player. Like, he was a biochemistry major and an All-American at Notre Dame. Like, he got like 1B. It was incredible. You can do both.
You can.
It just takes a tremendous amount of focus and sacrifice and intelligence. And frankly, he had it. I didn't have that type of focus.
I didn't either.
Right.
But I would say he's an outlier.
Sure, but that's the same with regular students that achieve that. I don't think
But here's the problem.
There's regular students that work in school and work more hours that are unable to be great in both, or even good in both, because they got to pay their way.
So here then is the rub, because you and I agree on that. I think there are outliers in academics, in regular academics, and there are outliers as it relates to student athletes. The problem then becomes that the reason that these kids are artificially held down monetarily, namely based on their name and likeness, is because of the quote-unquote value of the education. Well, I just told you that the conflicts are going to arise and that your sport is going to win out. And what Rosen said is true. It is nearly, if not completely, but nearly impossible to access the full value of the academic institution and play your sport. So it makes it problematic to argue then that quote-unquote opportunity at an education is all you need in compensation in order to go and play your sport.
But that's not two things. First thing is I would disagree from the standpoint of everywhere it's hard to access full value. I mean, like I brought this up on this show earlier this week. Like UCLA doesn't even start school till the 25th of September.
Sure.
Okay, so they got plenty of time to excel in athletics.
Yeah, but it's not just about in season. You and I both know that. I mean, he brought up in the article about spring football. Again, your sport will win out at any time.
Yeah. How many hours are you really in the facility in spring football? Like
for a quarterback?
Yes. No, you're not sitting there watching tape 24 hours a day. Like you got time. Like you have plenty of time to play video games, plenty of time to chase girls. You got time. Like I think back and remember how much time I didn't spend in the gym that I should have spent watching film, because I had a great college experience and I got decent grades at a school not at the level of UCLA when I went to Oklahoma State. But you have to learn your time. But I also think, look, a lot of college students don't even go to school anymore.
Sure.
They take their classes online.
Sure.
And so you can access that value, and you do have the best tutors. It's a different style of education, I would agree. But to me, the big win is this, and I know you're a pay the players guy or allow them to use their likeness guy, which is pay the players. But the issue is this: what you achieve in college pays off for you as a professional. And even if it's just I played in college, that's going to get you the job. That's going to get you in the conversations. That's going to get you even if it's pharmaceutical
Doug, what if you're
sales.
not developed?
But you're more developed. You're more developed than you would have been if you didn't have college.
I just think I don't like that argument, because you can say, well, it'll get you in the door, but are you prepared to be inside of that door?
But that's all. College has that problem for all students, but especially for student athletes. There should be a degree program to which you can be a pre-professional, where they teach you how to do the things that they don't teach you in high school, that you didn't, because you didn't come from a two-parent home with college.
But the reason we don't compensate these athletes is because we're telling them you will be prepared.
No. That's not why
we're going to give you an education.
No, they compensate them with the value of the scholarship. It is valuable.
But only if you're prepared for that opportunity.
Yes.
But again, if you're in a process of just get them in, keep them eligible, are you really ready and prepared to take full advantage of that opportunity that you were given? I would argue that in some cases, absolutely, and in other cases, not. So it's hard for me to argue in terms of that regular student, because that's on them. That's their own money. But you were telling me I was valuable enough to you that you offered me a scholarship. I earned a scholarship to come and compete in intercollegiate athletics at your university. You want me to represent your university. And in turn, you're going to give me an opportunity to access the education at your school. But if you're not allowing me to access that full value, and if you're going to prop me up and then keep me eligible and not fully develop me, then the value of that education is not what you promised me in the first place.
But how? Why is there no level of accountability on the human being, on the student athlete?
I'll tell you what.
I watch Last Chance U,
because standards at schools dip for athletes.
I know they do,
again,
but
get them in and get them eligible. It's not just about the eligible part. It's also the get them in part. We allow student athletes to access this environment that they might not be prepared to access.
Now, they've raised the entrance standards across the board in the NCAA starting this year. They're much more difficult. But
it's not about whole NCAA standards. No. I'm sorry. But it's not about whole NCAA standards, because it's about the standards versus the other students in that environment. See,
I know, but
it's not about you're trying to blanket. So all these student athletes have this entrance requirement across the country. But if you're going to access the education at UCLA, which is a top, I believe, 20 school in the U.S. News and World Report, American universities, or if you're going to access Notre Dame or Northwestern or some of these great institutions, let's say, for sake of argument, that some of them allow an athlete that maybe wouldn't get in if he was a non-athlete.
No question. I would not have gotten into Notre Dame on my own. My brother was an assistant coach at Cal for 6 years. He's told me time and again about how many of their guys would never have a chance to get into Cal on their own.
So all my argument is that we allow kids into school that maybe don't have the ability to be there academically. Then we prop them up. We keep them eligible. They don't access the full value of the education that we're supposedly promising them, and yet we point to that education or opportunity at an education when we say you can't earn a dime on your name and likeness. There is a rub there, and it's getting more problematic as time goes on.
I want to ask you, your former quarterback. Can you stay for a second?
Sure.
I want to ask you about Mike Glennon in a second. I'll end this portion of the conversation saying this. I think you're giving guys who we know the failures of so many public school systems, even some private schools, in terms of what they do for the student athletes and push them through. You're giving them an opportunity for a world-class education.
I don't agree. I don't disagree with that.
What they do with it at some level that's on you. And there are plenty of regular students and student athletes that go back like, man, I wish I had taken advantage of that opportunity. But at least I got a degree and I got to meet people who are going to start businesses for the rest of their life. All right.
Hold on, real quick.
Yeah.
Based on that argument, you throw a 17-year-old that really probably shouldn't be in the NBA, and you throw him into an NBA game, and then you say, well, he failed. Was that a real opportunity?
No. Well, it's a little bit of a different argument because there's no fallback there. But is it? No, it's not a real opportunity. It's not a smart opportunity. It's not an opportunity that you can see. The percentages of chance that you succeed are far less than if somebody is truly prepared for that opportunity. That helps your argument, and for that I agree with you. Speaking of percentage of chance that it succeeds, I want to share a story when I was at Notre Dame on somebody that I beat out and how I feel like he relates directly to Mike Glennon. The percentage of chance that Mike Glennon succeeds in Chicago are slim to none. I'll tell you why next in The Herd.